Growing up in the East meant I did get to see some quackery from last century and how they took advantage of ignorant, helpless people. So I thought today, let's look at some of the old quackeries from past, what they pretended to be and how they truly worked. Let's jump into it. The first one is the most common of them all. They were called Ojha. Think of them as a shaman. This lot who specializes on snakes. If we are bitten, say in a village in Bangladesh or India, back in 1980s, there was a pretty good chance that you get to see them. They would come with their holistic magical items, burn some incense and recite some mantras. Voila! You're cured of the snake bite and you prove it by not dying. Amazing. So what is going on? Well, from the title, obviously you know that I am biased, and I don't think it has anything to do with mantra. To start with, out of 2,700 known species of snake, only 300 are venomous. We find around 60 of them in subcontinent. Most of the ones lurking in water are not venomous. Snakes store the venom in glands, and poisons are being injected into bloodstream. Now, how much venom a snake can deliver depends on the remaining venom. Once depleted, it may take days, even weeks, to replenish the stores of venom. When it comes down to the actual event, 1. That bite may not have been by a poisonous snake. Bear in mind that it can take hours before a healthy human would show any symptoms. Even if it was a poisonous snake, it may not have had enough venom left to kill that person or deliver enough venom. According to the Network of Health and Medical Facilities at the University of Wisconsin, bites from venomous snakes doesn't always deliver a payload of toxins. At least 25% of venomous snake bites are so-called dry bites. If 8 to 12 hours elapsed without any symptoms, the bite was likely venom-free. I guess the Ojhas are really rolling the dice towards their favor. If the patient lives, they get the glory. If the patient dies, that is what God has wanted. And who are we to question him? There is one variation where they would put a stone on the patient, and these stones are supposed to suck the poison out. But before the procedure, quite often the victims would be given pepper seeds, which to them would taste neutral, i.e. not hot. During the process, the stones are often bathed in milk, and the milk would slowly turn blue. And soon enough, patient would start feeling the chili in the pepper and recover. Then there is Thala or plate method. This is also used when bitten by rabid dog. Simply put, the victim would be topless with his back towards the sun. Then our Ojha would put a thala on his back, and that would stick like magnet. As the Ojha is reciting his mantras, the thala would suck out all the poison and soon enough fall off. The stone and blue milk, well, simply, it's the solid substance called Nil that is often used to clean clothes. Some is dropped into the milk to make it turn blue. For the dogs, we're really talking about rabies here. Generally, if a dog has rabies, it would not live for more than 6 days. Before the dog gets infected itself, the virus can last in their saliva for up to 4 days. So in essence, if the dog is alive for 10 days after it has bitten someone, that someone doesn't need to take an anti-rabies vaccine or ARV. Just because one has been bitten by a stray dog doesn't automatically equate to getting infected with rabies. That being said, how does the plate work? Well, the plate itself is smaller than the patient's back and has a distinct shape. Rather than being flat, it's actually concave. Now when the Ojha presses it down on a sweaty back, well, there is almost no air between the patient's back and the plate itself, That makes it stick to the back. Over time, some air do manage to slip through between the crack. And once enough air is between, the plate falls off. Next one I have for you is the Garland of Jaundice. Well, jaundice is a condition in which the skin, whites of the eyes and mucous membranes turn yellow because of a high level of bilirubin, a yellow-orange bile pigment. Well, you'll be given a special garland, and no bathing for you, and no oil, butter and such. As you're resting, this garland would suck out the jaundice and slowly start to expand. And the patient recovers. What is happening? Well, in adults, jaundice usually doesn't need to be treated. If you have acute viral hepatitis, jaundice will go away on its own as the liver begins to heal. If a blocked bile duct is to blame, your doctor may suggest surgery to open it. The trick here is the actual material. This garland is made from specific tree branches, and these branches are hollow inside. And as these branches get drier, they tend to expand. The next trick is the actual stitch. You just can't use the string all the way through. Instead, the Ojha would stitch it using sailor's knot. This allows the flex to the screen that would allow the space while the branches expand over time. So if you'd hang this garland on a piece of nail, it would equally expand without any jaundice. This next lot all evolves around a single problem. Something of value has been stolen, and you would call an Ojha. Once they arrive, they would talk to some of the people around. Finally, they would perform their miracle. One is using ball of flowers. Our Ojha would recite some mantras while mixing some flour with water to make a mold. Now our Ojha would tear that mold into smaller ball and drop it into a bowl of water while reading the suspect's name. Now obviously those flower balls would sink into the water, and they all do, until it comes to one name, and miraculously one starts floating, and thus you have your thief. At this point they either bring out the stolen goods or at times admits to selling it off or someone stealing it from them. Another method is, well, I love this one. We magicians often use this even nowadays. Simply we recite some mantras while burning some paper. In the old days, it would have the names of all suspects. Then once we rub those ashes on our arm, the name of the chosen card, name of the thief would appear. Next, the banana method. All suspected are given bananas, and when they peel it, the one held by the thief is cut in half inside. Even when you examine the outer layer, it is completely intact. This one is harder and takes much more skill. Ojha would use a child or a woman from the household being stolen from and would ask that person to focus on the nails on Ojha's finger, and soon the thief would be visible to them. The following has different variations. In all cases, again a child or a woman from the household being stolen from would hold some kind of items, and as Ojha is reciting his mantra, they would be directed towards the thief by that item. Now the item can be a bowl and the process would be called Boti Chalan, a stick and it would be called Konchi Chalan. Next method uses something called a Kula. It's a container with holes used for winnowing, i.e. separating grain from chaff. The Kula would be attached to a scissor and works with yes-no question. On correct statement like, "Did XYZ steal my cow?" it would move. This is called Kula Chalan. Yep, Chalan basically means movement. Before explaining this section, let me just talk about human psychology. If I accuse you of a crime that you have not committed, obviously you deny. But would you still deny after severe torture? Can you think of any point where the pain would be so unbearable that you'd admit to any accusation? Hell, I would admit to being Heil Hitler if tortured enough. But that doesn't make it so. Forget torture. If I believe someone can harm my loved one, I would agree without the torture. This is the reason Confessions isn't as solid as cranked up to be. Next, life is not a detective novel. 9 times out of 10 is the guy you suspect is the one who has done it. Most of the time, it is the spouse. That's just how the ball rolls. So in most cases, when the Ojhas initially talk to the people, they get an idea on who the major suspect is. Most often, it would be the correct guess. Even if not, the accuser is most likely to confess just so they don't get beaten. So with that out of the way, the flower method? Well, one way would be to sneak in a puffed rice for the correct ball. As the Ojha knows the prime suspect, that's the ball that would have this for an item. If the puffed rice has a very thin coating of flour, it would float on water. Ash method? Sorry, can't talk about it. The circle would kick my arse. It is very simple though, and it's all about presentation. I'm sure there is 100 video on YouTube explaining it. Banana? Easy. Have a banana prepared by using a needle. Stick it in the middle and slowly twist it left and right to create a cut without visible mark. Finally, give it to the right person. Nail method, as I mentioned, needs a lot more skill. Quite often, Ojha would have some oily substance on their nail, but those are the non-skilled one, and they would just use reflection. The good one? Well, more on that later. Boti Chalan and Konchi Chalan is also one that I don't really want to explain, but hey, it's not like many people would see the video. These are based on suggestions. I'll talk about this shortly in the video. Kula with scissor. Well, the bad Ojhas would be balancing the scissors themselves and move it at the right name. The good ones will let the person hold the scissor. Now, some of you might have come across some of other videos where I talk about my love for magic. I am a mentalist, or a magician for grown-ups, or a magician who deals with mind. Due to that, I appreciate the Ojhas perform only from a skill point of view. I'm not tooting my own horn. If you know me personally, I'm sure you have seen me perform and know what I'm capable of. And I'm not even that good. I can tell you what you're thinking of, can tell you what has happened to you in past, I can predict what is to happen. Hell, one of my favorite effects is where I would read tarot cards and answer 3 questions that you have only in your mind. But my personal favorite is influence. I think people can appreciate that skill in real life. Of being able to manipulate someone's thought is more useful than turning water into wine. So difficulty-wise? Well, I do something similar to Kula Chalan. In the effect, I have a lock and a bunch of keys, but only one would open the lock. Then I would try to get some rings to lock together. Finally, one of the ring owner would be holding a pendulum and magically it would only rotate when it is on top of the current key, now mixed up with all the other keys. I'm good enough to do this every time, all the time with anyone, provided they understand my English. That should be enough hint for you to understand how it works. One word, suggestion. That nail effect is hard. Suppose I'm doing it and I can't get that person to see what I want her to see. Well, I'll give it some time and then maybe I'll just use a banana method after giving some BS reason. They will only remember the effect that worked. For any fellow magician, that is an important lesson we can all learn. When you see a lovely big-breasted woman on a burger ad, all of a sudden you want to eat a double whopper. Think along the same line, but way, way too much subtle. I understand that I haven't proved the reasoning. All I said so far is I have been able to do it with many other performers, charlatans, yogis, conmen around the world. I don't know, maybe watch a Darren Brown special? I'll end the video here. I do have a lot more quackeries to go through, but looking at the length and knowing the next item, if I don't stop here, it will end up being a long video. If you have liked this content, please give it a like, comment, and maybe subscribe to help this small channel grow. If I get enough requests or get too bored with other stuff, I'll have the next episode soon. Well, thank you for watching. Have a safe day. Signing off.